These idiots almost ended someone's life for a TikTok video. Essentially, they filmed themselves launching a 33-pound chair from the top floor of a shopping mall, watching it fall 50 feet down and nearly crushing someone. And when police eventually tracked them down and asked, hey, why did you do that? They basically shrugged it off and said, it's not that deep because nobody actually got hurt. They almost ended someone's life for a social media video. How dumb is it even possible to be? So this all happened on March 1st, 2025. It was just another busy Saturday night at Westfield Stratford City in East London. If you're not familiar with this place, Westfield Stratford is one of the largest shopping centers in all of Europe, pulling in thousands of people every single day across multiple floors. It's packed there. It's an incredibly busy shopping mall. So then around 10:30 p.m., two teenage boys were hanging around the top floor, where the mall has these cushioned seats and footrests scattered around for shoppers to take a break. So the media reports showed that security footage later showed that the court captured two boys having a quick conversation, and then one of them walking over to a heavy blue chair and sitting down. And this wasn't some like lightweight plastic stool. No, this thing weighed 33 pounds, enough to do some real damage, especially when coming from 30 feet up above. So while his friend pulled out his phone and started recording on Snapchat, the first teenager picked up the chair, carried it over to the glass railing, and then just threw it over the edge. Who cares? Not my problem. Like, is that really the attitude here? Obviously, the video shows the chair crashing down from 50 feet. And unfortunately, the footage has to be censored of them because they're minors as they committed the crime. Even though that they were the ones who were dumb enough to film themselves committing the crime.
Oh, go, yalla. Yalla. There's no way this guy's doing. Oh.
But obviously, one person there had to jump out of the way just in the last second to avoid getting hit. So that is just awesome, guys. Immediately after the chair landed, though, both teenagers ran like the cowards they are. And then they do pretty much what every single person we cover here on this channel does when they do something incredibly stupid. So the video went up on Snapchat and TikTok, and then they probably went home thinking they got away with it. But as it turns out, the clip went viral. So within just a few days, it was everywhere, bouncing between TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and pretty much every other platform that you can think of. And naturally, the authorities saw it. So they stepped in, and by the time they did, the video had already been viewed 8 million times on TikTok. And the response was, basically exactly how you would expect. The comment section turned into a mix of shock, anger, and disbelief that anyone would even think this is a good idea to do. But the video also caught the attention of not just random social media users, but also the authorities and Uma Kamaran, who's the member of the Parliament of Stratford. She saw the video and put out a public statement saying that she was horrified by what she'd seen, and had already requested an urgent meeting with the local police commander to figure out what was being done to find who was responsible. So beyond the public outrage and political reactions, 2 days after the incident, on March 3rd, the Metropolitan Police officially confirmed they were investigating on what happened. So then you have Inspector Dan Window from the Stratford Neighborhood Policing Team. He put out a statement explaining what they were looking into, and honestly, the investigation itself didn't really take that long. Because, as I say, time and time again here on this channel, when you film yourself committing a crime and then upload it to social media where millions of people can see your face and hear your voice, that's what happens. Like, you're essentially doing the investigator's job for them. So, awesome. Thank you for your service. You're a scumbag for doing that to begin with, but thank you for being an idiot. So, according to what happened later on in court and was reported by the media, a police officer actually recognized one of the teenagers from the video. So I guess that would show this isn't the first time they've done some funny business, but hey. So once they identified the kid who was filming, it was pretty straightforward to track down the kid who did it. So on March 4th, just 3 days after the whole thing happened, police arrested both boys. And at the time of the arrest, they were 14 years old and 16 years old. So both were incredibly young, but also old enough to understand this is an incredibly stupid thing to do. But both teenagers were brought in for questioning, and this is where you really get a sense of how they were thinking about the whole situation. Because the kid who actually threw the chair told investigators it's not that deep. It didn't hit anyone. Dude, you don't get to just almost end someone's life and be like, well, I didn't. Who cares? Like, how do you not understand the weight of your own actions? This is crazy to me. But it gets worse because during the interview, he also casually mentioned that throwing stuff off of high places, that was just kind of their thing. He even admitted that him and his friend regularly pulled pranks like this that included throwing objects off of bridges at passing trains. So yeah, this definitely doesn't seem like a lapse of judgment. This was probably just the first time they did it where there's CCTV footage everywhere. Then obviously, one of them recording it for attention online, that didn't help them either.
I just can't talk. I don't have any liquid in my mouth.
I've only been drinking coffee today, so now I'm going to steal steal my son's juice box.
That's not good stuff.
So about a month later on April 8th, the Metropolitan Police announced that both teenagers were actually being charged with criminal damage with intent to endanger life. Basically, the prosecution was arguing that these kids deliberately damaged property, the 500-pound chair, while being reckless about whether their actions could put someone's life at risk. And the boys were scheduled to appear at Stratford Youth Court on May 6th. However, since apparently both of the families were not comfortable speaking English, they needed interpreters to understand the proceedings. And then the magistrate had to adjourn everything until May 21st to give everyone time to arrange proper translation. The boys were then released on bail, but with some tight restrictions. They had to stay home during curfew hours, weren't allowed to contact each other, and were completely banned from entering Westfield Stratford. But when they came back on May 21st, both teenagers entered not guilty pleas to the charge of criminal damage that recklessly endangered life. And after that, between the hearing and the actual trial date, the case simply moved forward through usual legal proceedings. So by the time they showed up to Stratford Youth Court on July 16th, the charges had been adjusted. The prosecution decided to drop the more serious criminal damages that recklessly endangered life charges and replaced it with two separate charges: regular criminal damage and recklessly causing a public nuisance. And that's where the two boys decided to split up on their decision making here. So the 14-year-old who threw the chair, he decided to change his plea. He stood up in court and admitted to both charges, the criminal damage and the public nuisance charge. However, his friend who filmed everything stood by his not guilty plea on both counts. And on September 25th, more than 6 months after the chair was thrown, the case finally reached its sentencing. Judge DeHonorian handed down an 8-month detention and training order for the boy who threw the chair, and that sentence was split evenly: 4 months in a secure training facility, followed by 4 months under supervision after release. She also imposed a standard 41-pound victim surcharge, though no additional costs were ordered. So he breaks a 500-pound chair but has to pay 41 pounds, and then he got 4 months under some training facility and then 4 months on bail, I guess. So he destroyed a 500-pound chair, almost seriously injured someone at the lightest, and then he just has to pay 41 pounds, and then he gets, I guess, 4 months in a detention center and then 4 months essentially out but being supervised. That sounds very light. But as for the teenager who filmed the whole thing, he was scheduled to stand on trial December 2nd, but so far there hasn't been any public record indicating that he has been sentenced. But again, the chair costs 500 pounds to replace, which is honestly whatever. But the potential human cost if that chair had actually hit someone, obviously that could have been catastrophic. I mean, just thinking about the physics of a 33-pound chair coming down from 50 feet, that's crazy. That could have easily been the end of the person it hit if it hit someone. Like, the fact that no one got hurt was pure luck. Not because any of them were being careful in the slightest, but what's crazy is it's basically already over for the kid who threw the chair. 8 months in detention, half of it behind bars, after admitting that they do this a lot? Like, that sounds incredibly weak to me, because honestly, it doesn't do that much to deter others. I'm still kind of shocked. Like, did the attorney just show up and go, "Your Honor, my clients are too stupid to understand what they did could have had lethal consequences." And I guess the judge and prosecution was just like, "Oh yeah, fair. Let's make the charges lighter." Isn't that disregarding the safety of everyone in the UK? Come on! Either way, whether the sentence could actually deter others from doing similar stuff, that's debatable. But at least this case makes it very clear that it's not that deep. That's not an acceptable defense when you're standing in front of a judge trying to explain why you threw a 33-pound chair from 50 feet up into a crowded shopping mall. It's not like you just threw it off of a bridge. No, into a crowded shopping mall. I'm just shocked. I don't know. It is what it is. But hey, what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. But other than that, feel free to subscribe if you're new here. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.